now. So ano nga ba yung mga kailangan nating malaman in this lesson? Of course, as you can see, we do have a new figure here. So this time, this lesson will focus only on the figure, which is what we call as a trapezoid. And also, under trapezoid, we do have what we call there isosceles trapezoid. Here we go again. So we are going to move forward. That means we are going to discuss or continue our lesson for the third grading period. So we are now on lesson number 5. So what would be the focus of our discussion for lesson number 5? So for lesson number 5, we are going to discuss first trapezoid and median of a trapezoid. So we are going to talk about here the figure trapezoid, and also we're going to talk about the median of a trapezoid, which is also known as the midline theorem of a trapezoid. Then after that, we are also going to discuss isosceles trapezoid and its properties and give examples on how are we going to solve problems which involves the figure trapezoid. So ano pang hinihintay natin? So let's start it now. So ano nga ba yung mga kailangan nating malaman in this lesson? Of course, as you can see, we do have a new figure here. So this time, this lesson will focus only on the figure, which is what we call as a trapezoid. And also, under trapezoid, we do have what we call there isosceles trapezoid. And we have defined that already during our first discussion ng third grading period. So, unang-una natin alamin is recall natin definition of a trapezoid. So, ano nga ba 'yon? So, unang-una, we define trapezoid as a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. Just like, for example, this one. So, we do have here what we call trapezoid. Again, we define trapezoid as a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. So this side together with this side, they are parallel to each other. So but this side and this side, it does not necessarily mean na kailangan maging congruent sila. So as long as meron kang one pair of parallel sides, then we are pertaining to a trapezoid. So ano yung mga things na makikita natin or what are the characteristics of a trapezoid? So a trapezoid, meron siyang one pair of parallel sides. That pair of parallel sides that we do have in a trapezoid, that is what we call as the base of a trapezoid. They are bases of the trapezoid. So, kahit na nasa taas yung isa, still we call that other side as the base of a trapezoid. And, of course, the non-parallel sides of that trapezoid, yun naman yung tinatawag natin as the legs. That is what you can see in this given trapezoid, which is known as a trapezoid MATH. Another thing is that we do have this. Ito naman yung tinatawag natin as the altitude. Altitude is also known as the height of the trapezoid. So, in other words, we can call it as the altitude. So, meaning to say, if you are asked to find for the altitude of a given trapezoid, it is the same way that you are being asked on what would be the height of that given trapezoid. Again, characteristics of a trapezoid with trapezoid has its bases, has its legs, and has its altitude. So ano-ano yung mga definition of those characteristics of a trapezoid? So unahin natin yung bases. Bases are the parallel sides of the trapezoids. So once you've seen a trapezoid, and you've seen its parallel sides, we call that parallel sides of a trapezoid as its bases. Just like what we have mentioned earlier. Next, legs. Legs are the non-parallel sides of a trapezoid. So when you draw a given trapezoid, since you know that na meron yung exactly one pair of parallel sides, so that non-parallel sides of the trapezoid, we call that as the legs. Next, base angles. Base angles, the angles formed by a base and a leg. So merong base angles yung trapezoid natin. So yung angle na nasa dalawang angles na nasa baba, saka yung dalawang angles na nasa taas. Kasi yun yung angles formed by a base and a leg of a trapezoid. So we do have also what we call base angles. And also, we do have altitude. We made mention earlier kung ano yung altitude. It's the same way that we are pertaining to the height of that trapezoid. So an altitude of a trapezoid is a line segment from one base of a trapezoid perpendicular to the opposite base or to an extension of that base. So when you draw a trapezoid, that non-parallel sides, if one base of the trapezoid is perpendicular to the opposite base, or to an extension of that base, then we are pertaining to the altitude of a trapezoid. Do you remember yung example of a trapezoid when we discussed about the introduction to quadrilaterals? Yung figure na binigay natin as an example of a trapezoid. So, yung figure na yun, it's just like given na doon yung altitude na sinasabi natin. So, it's just like given na yung height of that trapezoid. So, ayun yung mga definition of the things that you can see or what we call as characteristics of that trapezoid, of a trapezoid rather. So, what else? Since we are talking about trapezoid, so let us talk about this time the median of a trapezoid. Again, as I have mentioned to you earlier, the median of a trapezoid is also known as the midline QM of a trapezoid. So what is this? So median of a trapezoid is a segment that joins the midpoint of the legs. So alam na natin kung ano yung legs of the trapezoid. That's the non-parallel sides of a trapezoid. So when you draw a line segment that joins the midpoint of those legs, so we can form the what we call median of a trapezoid. It's just like this. So let's say for example, ito yung given trapezoid natin. Then this point is the midpoint of this segment, while this point is also the midpoint of this segment. Then draw a segment there connecting the two midpoints, then we can form the what we call median of the trapezoid. So it only means that, as you can see on the markings, this segment together with this segment, they are congruent. And this segment together with this segment are also congruent. Pero hindi ibig sabihin na itong segment to at itong segment to ay congruent. Kasi ang tinutukoy natin is the midpoint of the legs. So kalahati, yung gitnang mismo ng leg na yon. Ibig kung gitna yon, equal yung dalawang to. So ganun din on the other side. So ayun yung tinatawag natin median of a trapezoid. So ano ba yung kailangan para makuha natin tinatawag na median, o ano ba yung needs that what are the things that we need to know about median of a trapezoid? So median of a trapezoid is equidistant and parallel to each base. Again, the median of a trapezoid is equidistant and parallel to each base. So ito daw median na to, parallel siya, and equidistant. So, equal yung distance niya dun sa bases of the given trapezoid. Aside from that, the length of the median of a trapezoid equals 1/2 the sum of the lengths of the two bases. So if you're going to analyze that given statement, the length, ibig sabihin, the measure of this median of the trapezoid equals 1/2. 1/2 meaning kalahati ng sum of the lengths of the bases. Kung alam mo yung measure of these bases, just add the two bases, then divide it by 2, that's the half of it, then that would be the measure of that median of the trapezoid. So if you are going to form that statement into the formula, it is just like this. So MD stands for median is equal to 1/2. 1/2 the sum of the lengths of the bases. So there are two bases in the given trapezoid, di ba? So we do have median is equal to 1/2 times the quantity base 1 plus base 2. So just add that. The sum of it is to be divided by 2. That means we are getting half of it. Then we get the measure of the median of the trapezoid. So ganun yung ginagawa natin in order for us to find out for the median of a trapezoid. So in order for us to understand it more clearly, let us try it through examples. So let's have your example number 1. So solve for the unknown variable and the measure of the median. So in this given example, you are asked to solve for the value of D. At the same time, you are asked for the measure, the exact measure of this median given the measure of the bases of the trapezoid. So, in this given trapezoid, as you can see, ito yung sinasabi natin kanina na alam mo na kaagad yung measure of the altitude. So, kung ano yung measure nito, ayun mismo yung measure of the altitude. Not necessarily alam mo na kaagad. Kapag given yung measure nito, for example, nung side na to, ibig sabihin, you know already the measure of its altitude. Okay? So, here in this example number 1, we are asking for, you are asked to solve for the value of D and to find the measure of this median of the trapezoid with a given measurement for the bases of the trapezoid. So what are we going to do? So for our solution, the first thing we're going to do is to solve for D. That is by using the formula for finding the median, which is median is equal to 1/2 times the quantity base 1 plus base 2. Substitute the given in the problem. We come up with the median given there is 19 plus D. We still don't know yet the exact measure of this median. The 19 plus D is equal to 1/2 times the quantity, sum of the bases. Base 1 is 59 plus base 2 is equal to 99. Combine similar terms. So we'll come up with 59 plus 99, which is equal to 158. So para hindi tayo mahirapan masyado since it involves fraction, let us try to remove first that denominator 2. That is by multiplying both sides of the equation by 2. So when we do that, we'll come up with 38 plus 2D. Bakit naging 38 plus 2D? 2 times 19, that would be 38. Plus 2 times D, we come up with 2D. Is equal to, cancel the 2 here, then 1 times 158 now, it will be equal to 158. Then, isolate that given equation. That is by moving 38 to the right side of the equation for us to combine similar terms. So we'll come up with 2D is equal to 158 minus 38. So from positive here, when you move it to the right side of the equation, so the operation will become minus. Then 158 minus 38 is equal to 120. So it will become 2D is equal to 120. Then since we are looking for the value of D there, so the value of D we can get that by removing these 2 here. So we can do that by dividing both sides of the equation by 2. So that we'll find out for the value of d, which is equal to 60. So the value of d is 60. So we have already solved for the unknown variable, which is the value of d. Now let's find out for the measure of the median. So the median here is 19 plus d. So since we know the measure of the value of d, which is equal to 60, we can now find out the measure of this median. So the measure of the median, that is 19 plus 60, it will be 79. So that's the measure of the median. So let's try kung tama nga siya. The sum of the bases daw divided by 2 or half of the sum of the bases is equal to the median. 59 plus 99 is 158, di ba? Divide by 2, you'll come up with 79. So, nakuha mo yun. That is by getting first the value of d, which is equal to 60. Then substitute the value of d here. Kakaroon tayo 19 plus 60, which is equal to 79. So that's how we answer example number 1. Any questions so far? So if none, let's proceed to another example for you to understand it more clearly. Let's try another example here. So again, solve for the unknown variable and the measure of the bases and median. Why do we have to find out for the measure of the bases and the median? Because as you can see in the given trapezoid, the measure of the bases and the median involves variable. So we have to find first the value of that variable before we find out for the measure of the bases, the exact measure of the bases, as well as the median of that given trapezoid. So the first thing we are going to do is to solve for the value of x. Paano natin gagawin yon? Still, we are going to make use of the same formula by just simply substituting these given values in the given trapezoid here. So, isa-substitute lang natin siya to the given formula. So, the median is 4x. The bases are 2x plus 10 and 3x plus 20. So, just substitute it. So, we come up with 4x. Ito yung median is equal to 1 half. Half of the sum of the bases. 2x plus 10, yung base 1, plus 3x plus 20 as the base 2. Then, combine similar terms here. So, magkakaroon tayo ng 4x is equal to 1 half times the quantity 2x plus 10 plus 3x plus 20. So, what we did here is we remove right away the denominator of the fraction here so that hindi na natin siya puproblemahin in the end. So, that's what we did next. So, by doing that, so magkakaroon tayo ng 2 times 4x, that would be 8x. Then cancel na to, yung 2, matitira lang itong nasa loob na to. So pag ginawa natin yan, magiging ganito. Sabay na natin sinimplify yung nasa loob. Since mariremove na natin yung denominator na 2 here, so let's try to simplify it right away. 2x plus 3x, that would be 5x, then 10 plus 20, that would be 30. So magiging 8x na lang is equal to 5x plus 30. Then, move yung 5x to the left side of the equation. So from positive 5x, it will become negative 5x or minus 5x, or 8x minus 5x is equal to 30. Then, simplify that. 8x rather minus 5x is equal to 3x, which is equal to 30. Then to solve for x, as you can see, it is still accompanied by 3. So to remove that, you have to divide both sides of the equation by 3. So that x will be equal to 10. So by the value of x now is equal to 10. So by knowing that value of x, which is equal to 10, we can now find out what other things that we have to look for in the given trapezoid. Ano hinahanap pa natin? The measure of the bases as well as the median. So, ano yung measure of the bases? So, yung 2, substitute lang natin yung value ng x na 10. So, 2 times 10, that would be 20, plus 10, that is 30. The other bases, 3 times 10, that would be 30, plus 20, that would be equal to 50. Then for the median, 4 times 10, that would be 40. So that will come up with that. So the base 1 measures 30, base 2 measures 50, and the median measures 40. So we got that exact measure of exact measure of the bases and the median by getting first the value of x. So that's how we solve example number 2. You have any questions about it? So let's proceed. Now, this time let's talk about isosceles trapezoid and its properties. We have mentioned already or we have defined already yung tinatawag nating isosceles trapezoid. So, yung isosceles trapezoid, ganito yung itsura niya. Alam natin na ang trapezoid ay meron siyang exactly one pair of parallel opposite sides. So, ito yon. Pero it's called isosceles trapezoid. It's because the non-parallel sides of the trapezoid are congruent. Ibig sabihin, equal yung measure of that non-parallel sides. So, if the non-parallel sides are congruent, then we call the trapezoid as an isosceles trapezoid. So, ano yung kailangan natin malaman about isosceles trapezoid? So, isosceles trapezoid has its properties that we can use whenever isosceles trapezoid is given on the problem that we are solving. So, ano-ano ba yung mga properties na yon? So, unahin natin, first property of isosceles trapezoid is that it says that base angles are congruent. The base angles of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. Nasaan yun? Angle N and angle A, they are congruent, as well as angle R and angle Y. Since base angles din yun, so they are also congruent. Hindi lang natin nilagyan ng markings, pero when we are talking about base angles of the isosceles trapezoid, they are congruent in measure. Next, diagonals of an isosceles trapezoid are also congruent. So when you draw diagonal, when you draw a segment from point R to point A, which is the diagonal of it, then from point Y to point N, another diagonal. So the diagonals, diagonals of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent in measure. Ibig sabihin, the measure of segment RA and segment YN are congruent. They are equal in measure also. And third, opposite angles are supplementary. Opposite angles are supplementary. Nasaan yun? Angle R, ang opposite angle niya ay angle A. While angle Y, opposite angle niya ay angle N. So when we say supplementary, if we are going to add the measure of the two angles, it will be equal to 180 degrees. So, kung ang measure for example nito ay 80 degrees or 60 degrees, if the measure of angle N is 60 degrees, the measure of angle Y is equal to 120 degrees. Because according to the property, opposite angles are supplementary. When we add the measure of the two angles, it will be equal to 180 degrees. So those are the properties that will help us in solving for an isosceles trapezoid when there is a given problem which involves the figure, which is what we call isosceles trapezoid. So now, for us to apply those properties, let's do that through examples. So let's have your example number 1. Sabi dito, solve for the unknown variable in the following trapezoids. So you know that it's an isosceles trapezoid. So it's because, as you can see here, the non-parallel sides are congruent in measure. So what you're going to do is to solve for the unknown variable. Ano ba yung variable na meron tayo dyan? The variable B and the variable W. So any of the two, pwede nating unahin in solving for, in solving. So we can do finding the W first and finding B. So anong uunahin natin? So let's try to find first to solve for W. So ito ang hinahanap natin. So given lang yung exact measure of this angle, which is 27 degrees. So this angle, together with this angle, ang relationship nila is that they are base angles of an isosceles trapezoid. So since they are base angles, according to the property, base angles of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. So by knowing that property, we can come up, or we can think of a way in order for us to solve for the variable W. That is by equating these two. Because again, base angles are congruent. So we can come up with this. So 3W minus 3, ito yon, is equal to 27. That is again by using the property of an isosceles trapezoid that base angles are congruent. So isolating that given equation to solve for W, move lang yung negative 3 to the right side of the equation. So we'll come up with 3W is equal to 27 plus 3. Simplify, we have 3W which is equal to 30. So to solve for W, divide both sides of the equation by 3. So that W will be equal to 10. So we know already the value of W, that will be equal to 10. Next, let's solve this time for B. Paano naman solve yung B? With regards to this given measure of the angle na 27 degrees and this angle na may measure na 2B minus 3, they are opposite angles of an isosceles trapezoid. So, going back to the property, ang sabi doon, opposite angles of an isosceles trapezoid are supplementary. Again, opposite angles of an isosceles trapezoid are supplementary. So, by having that, or by knowing that property, we can come up of a way on how are we going to solve for the value of B. Sabi, since they are supplementary, when we add these two measures of angles, it will be equal to 180 degrees. So, we'll have the equation here. So, 2B minus 3 plus 27, i-add yung dalawa, then it will be equal to 180 degrees. Simplify negative 3 plus 27, you'll come up with 24. Then move yung negative 20 or positive 24 to the right side of the equation, magiging minus 24. Then 180 minus 24, it will be equal to 156. So since you are looking for B, and since B is accompanied by 2 there, so we have to remove it by dividing both sides of the equation by 2. So divide both sides by 2, we'll come up with the value of B, which is equal to 78. So the value of B is equal to 78. So tingnan natin kung tama. 2 times 78, that would be 156. Minus 3, that is 153. Plus 27, that would be 180. So tingnan natin kung tama naman yung W. 3 times W, that would be 30 minus 3, that would be 27. So they are congruent in measure. So, ibig sabihin na satisfy natin yung properties of that given isosceles, trapezoid. So did you get that example number 1 about isosceles trapezoid? So if not yet, let's try another example. Let's have here example number 2. Again, the given here is an isosceles trapezoid. So solve for the unknown variable in the following trapezoids. So again, we are going to solve for x here. and to solve for y. So if you are going to analyze the given here, so if you are going to analyze the given here, you cannot make use right away of this, yung opposite angles. It's because they are using different variables. Instead, let's focus on this first. So as you can see, we do have an exact measure here of one of the base angle of that trapezoid, which is 78 degrees. And this is also a base angle. So base angles, according to the property, are congruent. So let's start solving first for the value of y by using uh, the property about which tells about the base angles of an isosceles trapezoid. Now, according to the property, base angles are congruent. So by knowing that, we can come up with a solution now for finding the value of y. That is by equating the two. So we do have 18 plus y, ito yon, equal to 78 by using the property. Then move yung 18 to the right side, magkakaroon tayo ng y is equal to 78 minus 18. Then 78 minus 18 is equal to 60. So the value of y is equal to 60. Now, how are we going to solve for the value of x? Doon na natin ngayon gagamitin yung uh, uh, a property about opposite angles of an isosceles trapezoid are supplementary. So in order for us to solve for x, so since we know already the value of y, we can now come up with this. So we can now substitute y here, which is equal to 60, then add by x, then it will be equal to 180 degrees. Because according to the property, opposite angles are supplementary. So magkakaroon tayo ngayon ng x plus 78. So bakit naging 78 to? It's because since y is equal to 60, malalaman na natin ngayon yung measure nito. Kasi since 78 yon, this will also be 78. So 18 plus 60, that would be 78. Kapag yung 78 na to, inad natin dito, then it will be equal to 180 degrees. So, can come up now with the equation x plus 78 is equal to 180. Then, solve for x by moving 78 to the right side of the equation. We'll come up with x is equal to 180 minus 78. So 180 minus 78 is equal to 102. So the value of x is equal to 100. So nakuha yung sample number 2. So kung hindi pa rin, let's try this another example. So did you get example number 2? So hopefully, nakuha nyo yung mga examples na binigay natin in this lesson. And hopefully, makatulong sa inyo when you encounter problems which involves a median of a trapezoid as well as isosceles trapezoid. So if there are no more questions, that would be all for today. Goodbye, class!